Russell Williams seemed to have it all. A decorated Canadian Air Force colonel, a respected leader, and a trusted public figure. For decades, he built a reputation based on discipline, professionalism, and service. He commanded one of Canada's largest military bases and was entrusted with responsibilities few people could ever imagine. To colleagues and neighbors, Williams appeared calm, intelligent, and dependable. He lived a quiet life with his wife in rural Ontario, far removed from the image of a criminal. But beneath that polished exterior was a secret life no one suspected. In 2009, a series of strange break-ins began occurring across several Ontario communities. Unlike typical burglaries, the intruder wasn't interested in cash or electronics. Instead, women's intimate clothing was being stolen from bedrooms and closets. The crimes were unsettling and deeply personal. Investigators initially believed they were dealing with a fetish burglar. Yet, as the incidents continued, a disturbing pattern emerged. The offender appeared to spend significant time inside victims' homes, carefully selecting items and sometimes rearranging personal belongings. Residents became increasingly concerned. Someone was entering homes undetected and leaving behind a sense of fear. What police didn't know was that these crimes were only the beginning of a much darker story. The offender's behavior was escalating, and the next stage would transform a local burglary investigation into one of the most shocking criminal cases in Canadian history. As the months passed, the break-ins became more frequent and more disturbing. Investigators realized the offender wasn't simply stealing items. He appeared obsessed with his victims. Some homeowners discovered evidence suggesting the intruder had spent long periods inside their homes. Personal belongings have been examined, moved, and sometimes photographed. The crimes reflected a growing fixation that worried investigators. Then, in November 2009, everything changed. 38-year-old military engineer Marie-France Comeau was found dead inside her home. The shocking murder stunned the local community and launched a major homicide investigation. Detectives worked around the clock, searching for evidence that could identify the killer. At first, there seemed to be few connections between the murder and the earlier break-ins. But as investigators dug deeper, similarities began to emerge. The possibility that a single offender was responsible became increasingly difficult to ignore. Then tragedy struck again. In January 2010, 27-year-old Jessica Lloyd disappeared from her home. Family members reported her missing after she failed to show up for work. Police immediately feared she had become the victim of the same predator. Search teams were deployed across the region. Communities lived in fear, wondering who could be responsible. The offender appeared organized, patient, and extremely careful. He had managed to avoid detection while committing crimes across multiple locations. Meanwhile, he continued living a normal life in plain sight. Few people could have imagined that the man responsible was someone already trusted by the public. The disappearance of Jessica Lloyd triggered one of the largest investigations Ontario had ever seen. Hundreds of officers were assigned to the case, examining every possible lead. Detectives knew they were hunting a dangerous offender, but identifying him seemed nearly impossible. Then investigators found something that would change everything. Tire tracks discovered near several crime scenes became a critical piece of evidence. Forensic specialists carefully analyzed the impressions and compared them to thousands of vehicles. The investigation gradually narrowed the list of possible suspects. One name eventually rose to the surface: Colonel Russell Williams. At first, the idea seemed unbelievable. Williams was a highly respected military officer with an exceptional career, yet the evidence kept pointing in his direction. Detectives continued gathering information while maintaining surveillance. The tire tracks appeared to match the tires on Williams' vehicle. The possibility that a decorated Air Force colonel could be responsible for the crimes shocked investigators. Still, they needed more evidence before making their move. As the investigation progressed, the case against Williams became stronger. Detectives prepared for what would become a pivotal moment. On February 7th, 2010, Russell Williams agreed to meet with investigators for an interview. He likely believed he could explain away any suspicions. But the detectives had spent months building their case. What happened next would become one of the most famous interrogations in Canadian criminal history. The man who entered the interview room as a respected military commander was about to confront evidence that would unravel the life he had spent years constructing. The interrogation of Russell Williams remains one of the most studied interviews in modern criminal investigations. Detective Jim Smith approached the conversation with patience and precision. Rather than making immediate accusations, he carefully guided Williams through a series of questions. At first, Williams appeared confident and composed. He answered calmly and attempted to maintain the image he had cultivated throughout his career. But the detective gradually introduced evidence that challenged his explanations. Then came the tire track evidence. Smith revealed that investigators had matched the tire impressions found near crime scenes to Williams' vehicle. The impact was immediate. For the first time, Williams appeared visibly shaken. Yet the detective continued. More evidence was presented. More inconsistencies were exposed. Every answer Williams gave seemed to push him deeper into a corner. The calm military officer who entered the room began to lose control. His posture changed. His confidence faded. The realization slowly became unavoidable. Investigators knew who he was. They knew what he had done. Eventually, faced with overwhelming evidence, Russell Williams confessed. The admission stunned everyone involved. A trusted military leader had revealed himself to be the very predator investigators had spent months searching for. But the confession didn't stop there. Williams provided details about crimes only the offender could know. As the interview continued, the true extent of his actions began to emerge. Yet even then, investigators had no idea how much evidence was waiting to be discovered. Following the confession, investigators searched Russell Williams' home, computers, and personal belongings. What they discovered was beyond anything they had expected. Thousands of photographs documented his secret activities. Many showed stolen clothing carefully arranged or worn by Williams himself. The images revealed years of hidden behavior that had gone completely unnoticed. Detectives also uncovered evidence linking him to dozens of break-ins across multiple communities. The collection demonstrated an extraordinary level of planning and organization. Williams had meticulously documented aspects of his crimes, creating a record of the secret life he had worked so hard to conceal. The evidence directly connected him to the murders of Marie France Como and Jessica Lloyd. For investigators, the discoveries confirmed that these were not isolated acts. They were the result of a pattern of escalating criminal behavior that had developed over many years. As details emerged, the public struggled to understand how someone with such a distinguished career could commit such horrific crimes. News of the case spread across Canada and around the world. The contrast between Williams' public image and private actions fascinated and horrified people alike. He had successfully maintained two completely different identities. One was visible to everyone around him. The other existed in secret, hidden behind military rank, authority, and respectability. The evidence left no room for doubt. The trusted colonel was responsible. The double life had finally been exposed, and there was no way back. In October 2010, Russell Williams pleaded guilty to multiple crimes, including 2 counts of first-degree murder. The courtroom heard details that shocked the nation. Families of the victims described the pain and devastation caused by his actions. Their statements served as powerful reminders of the human cost behind the headlines. Williams was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years. His military career ended in complete disgrace. The honors, achievements, and reputation he had spent decades building were permanently overshadowed by his crimes. For many Canadians, the case raised difficult questions about trust and appearances. How could someone in such a respected position hide a secret life for so long? The investigation itself became widely studied by law enforcement agencies. Detectives were praised for their meticulous work, particularly the forensic tire track analysis and interrogation techniques that ultimately secured Williams' confession. Today, the case remains one of the most disturbing true crime stories in Canadian history. Not only because of the crimes themselves, but because of the man who committed them. Russell Williams was not someone society expected to fear. He was a decorated officer, a leader, and a trusted figure. Yet behind that image existed a predator living a double life. The names Marie France Como and Jessica Lloyd continue to be remembered, ensuring that the focus remains on the victims rather than the offender. Their stories remain at the heart of the case that forever changed how many people view trust, authority, and the masks people sometimes wear.